Well, friends, if you have your Bible with you, I invite you to once again open it to the book of Isaiah, this time in chapter 11. Isaiah chapter 11, beginning at verse 1. Once again, brothers and sisters, hear the word of the Lord. A shoot will grow up from the stump of Jesse. A branch will sprout from his roots. The Lord's Spirit will rest upon him, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, a spirit of planning and strength, a spirit of knowledge and fear of the Lord. He will delight in fearing the Lord. He won't judge by appearances nor decide by hearsay. He will judge the needy with righteousness and decide with equity for those who suffer in the land. He will strike the violent with the rod of his mouth. By the breath of his lips he will kill the wicked. Righteousness will be the belt around his hips, and faithfulness the belt around his waist. The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the young goat. The calf and the young lion will feed together, and a little child will lead them. The cow and the bear will graze. Their young will lie down together, and a lion will eat straw like an ox. A nursing child will play over the snake's hole. Toddlers will reach right over the serpent's den. They won't harm or destroy anywhere on my holy mountain. The earth will surely be filled with the knowledge of the Lord, just as the water covers the sea. On that day, the root of Jesse will stand as a signal to the peoples. The nations will seek him out, and his dwelling will be glorious. Brothers and sisters, this is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
There is a lot of music that happens at this time of year, and that is a very silly understatement. We all hear all kinds of songs, from classic Christian hymns that the whole world seems to know about, to the standards of the 50s and 60s that people are so fond of, and of course, the ever-catchy pop songs that come up from the last few decades. And I will admit that when I think of catchy Christmas pop songs from the last few decades, I still think about songs from the 80s. But apparently there's new ones every year, so that just shows what's happening to me. But there is one particular song that I recently heard, and it stuck out to me like it hasn't before, and that was due to the lyrics. I will just assume that many of you are familiar with the song "Merry Christmas, War is Over" by John Lennon. Yeah, that guy from the Beatles. After his time with the Fab Four, he ventured out into a solo career, and he carried on making hits. And his one Christmas song seems to fit with a lot of his other work, calling for world peace in our time and making a plea for others to join in. But what stuck out to me when I heard this was the background choir in the song. As John Lennon was singing up front, you can hear the choir in the back saying, "War is over if you want it." War is over if you want it. It's more than a simple cry of, "Oh, let's just stop fighting and all get along, please." It seems to be a challenge to the world that if we want world peace, we will have to work together to get there. Admittedly, it's not a bad message for Christmas time. And surely world peace is something that all of us desire in some way, shape, or form. But it got me thinking. Is that how we as Christians think about peace? What does world peace mean to us as followers of Jesus? And how does God play into that? So this brings us to our text today in Isaiah chapter 11, which famously has been named or called the Peaceable Kingdom. This particular section of Isaiah is rich with imagery and symbolism and has given the people of God lots to ponder and think about over thousands of years. There's even a rather famous painting of it that was done by a Quaker minister named Edward Hicks, as he was trying to artistically depict Isaiah's prophecy. And while we may love the idea of animals laying down in peace together and kids being free to walk wherever they want, what I want to do is to think a little bit deeper about the underlying reality of God's peace that Isaiah is trying to tell us, just as he did the ancient Israelite people. But before we jump into that, once again, let's back up a little bit and remember what's going on. It is just before Isaiah gives this prophecy that the northern kingdom of Israel, not to be confused with the southern kingdom of Judah, I know this is kind of a weird time in Israel's history, but the northern kingdom of Israel has just been overrun and destroyed by the Assyrian Empire. The king of Judah at this time, named Ahaz, he's going to come up, remember him, had rejected any help from the northern kingdom. And he even tried to buddy up with the Assyrians so that he could at least be safe as they go destroying and massacring everybody else. But God steps in, and just like a great lumberjack cuts down the mighty woods, the Assyrians are destroyed because God has stepped in and said, this is what you get for destroying my people, Israel. But God also comes and cuts down Judah as a judgment against Ahaz for wanting to side with the Assyrians rather than God. Ahaz's plan didn't work out because he was more afraid of the Assyrians than he was concerned about following God, which should be a lesson to all of us. Things are quite bleak in this time. Violence is everywhere. War is brewing. And everything feels a little uneasy. This is where Isaiah steps in. And he says, yes, Ahaz, you screwed up. Things are bad. But God's not done yet. Out of this stump of a kingdom that God has cut down, that has been cast down by God's judgment, there will come a shoot that will grow again. This shoot, or this branch, will come from, he says, the stump of Jesse, which famously is the father of King David. And that is a really big deal for these ancient Israelites because God has promised that the line of David would never be broken, and someone from David's family would always be in line for the throne, that a descendant of David would always sit on the throne. But this is not going to happen because of human measures, because of people working together to keep themselves alive. Just as a shoot or a branch growing out of a dead stump, God will miraculously bring life out of a seemingly dead family and a dead kingdom. God is the one who will do this. And when it happens, everyone will know, wow, the only way that's possible, the only way that could happen is because God did it. But then Isaiah goes on to describe what this shoot or this branch of David is going to be like. It's not just that God is going to miraculously bring someone up out of this lineage, but it's going to be a specific someone. It's going to be a particular kind of person, and this is what he will be like. Isaiah says, the Spirit of the Lord will rest upon him. Which, in Old Testament language, is a really big green flag that means God's anointed one. AKA, the Messiah, or the Christ. Both of those, Messiah and Christ, mean God's anointed one. So this Messiah, the one on whom the Spirit of the Lord will rest, he's going to have all the signs and all the qualities of a godly king. Wisdom, understanding, planning, strength, knowledge, and the fear of the Lord. In the Old Testament, just to give a little recap for some of us, when it says the fear of the Lord, or when it uses that phrase, the fear of the Lord, this isn't about terror, this isn't about being afraid of God, but it is speaking of reverence, awe, even wonder of God. This Messiah is not going to be afraid of God, but this Messiah will turn to God in reverence, trusting God, living according to God's ways, like no one has before. It is out of that reverence and out of that obedience to God that this Messiah will do as Isaiah says next. He says that he won't judge by appearances. He won't decide by hearsay. He will judge the needy with righteousness. He will give equity to those who have suffered. And he will strike the land with his words and breath, bringing an end to the violent and the wicked. This Messiah, it sounds a lot like, will be in the judge's seat that we talked about last week as we were in Isaiah chapter 2. Bringing justice to everyone. Making things right. Making all things as they should be. And he's not doing justice. He's not bringing justice based on how things look, on assumptions, or what is at least perceived. But rather, he is looking through a God lens, so to speak. He's not looking through human lenses. He's not looking at the qualities, the characteristics, and the circumstances from a human point of view, but he is looking at things and places and people from a God point of view. This Messiah will judge, knowing the hearts and the inner workings of a people. He will lift up the poor and hurting, and he will bring down the powerful who do evil. This Messiah, Isaiah says, who wears righteousness and faithfulness like a belt, will show that he is the anointed of God by how he treats people and by how he uses those gifts of wisdom and strength and knowledge. You see, it's not just that this anointed descendant of David has been blessed with the Spirit of the Lord, but it is how he will use that blessing in godly ways to bring justice and peace. This is what a true godly king looks and acts like. This is the true descendant and even fulfillment of King David. Now, all of us hear these words, read these words, and immediately we think, well, duh, that's Jesus. But it's not Jesus because Isaiah is trying to talk in code about, hey, there's this guy who's going to come into from the future, and I got a glimpse of it, and I'm just going to speak in code so that people don't get it. Isaiah is using words and actions of a Messiah that Jesus will pick up and carry to fulfillment and fruition. The prophets didn't have a kind of secret foreknowledge about Jesus and predict his coming like a shady somebody who uses a crystal ball to guess and talk about the future. The prophets, Isaiah being the foremost, gave announcements of, this is what a Messiah who is sent by God will do, and this is how you will know that he is the real deal. So when Jesus comes along and he does all of those things, the people around him realize, oh, this Jesus is the Messiah, because he fits perfectly into the description, into the ways that the prophets talked about and told us to look for. Now we on the other side of Jesus' coming can read Isaiah and read the other prophets, and we know, oh, he may not know that he's talking about Jesus, but he's talking about Jesus. He doesn't know this, but we know it because we are now on the other side of it. Jesus fits the description so well, it couldn't possibly be anybody else. And we believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Christ, the anointed and blessed one sent by God to bring life back into Israel and to establish a kingdom that is founded on justice and mercy and peace. But that is a depiction and an image of the ruler of this kingdom. Isaiah goes on not just to talk about the one who is going to rule, but he also wants to talk about this is what his kingdom will look like. Wolves will live with lambs. Leopards will lie down with goats. There will be cows and lions and bears. Oh my! And all of them will be living in peace with one another, having no fear of harm or death anywhere in sight. This is more than just a cute picture that you might put up in a church nursery somewhere. This is Isaiah calling to mind the Garden of Eden in the Israelites' mind. The ancient paradise where all of creation lived together in harmony with each other. Isaiah is pointing to the Messiah, pointing to the coming anointed, and saying, the anointed one, this Messiah from God, will bring a peaceable kingdom with him that hasn't been seen since Eden. And it's not just a callback to the garden. It's not just saying, like, hey, we're going to go back to that. We're going to return to the Garden of Eden. This is a leap forward, saying the coming king will bring a renewed Garden of Eden. A paradise 2.0, if you will, where things are even better than they were before. The key to all of this is in verse 8. Where it talks of a toddler, small child, will have no fear from the snake or the serpent. You may remember back to Genesis chapter 3, when God cursed the serpent, saying that the serpent and the woman's offspring would always be enemies with each other. The snake would always bite at the ankles of the child, and the child would crush the serpent's head. But here, in Paradise 2.0, the Messiah is going to redeem not just the relationships between predator and prey, but between the child and the snake, between the good and the evil. All of it will be redeemed and be at peace. This is the peaceable kingdom that Isaiah proclaims to the people of Judah. Now, it would be good for us to remember that the people of Judah are witnessing their neighbors being killed in warfare, and that they are fearing violence that is coming to destroy their own lives, just as it did the people around them. So while war rages all around them, Isaiah steps up and says, one day a good and just king will come, who will end all of this, and who will bring true, genuine peace to all of us. A peace that's more than just not fighting, more than people agreeing to just get along with each other. This is a peace that brings all of creation, people, animals, even the earth itself, into harmony with God and harmony with each other. And Isaiah says, on that day, the whole world will know God in a deep, intimate, personal way. And that intimacy with God will be as deep, as wide, as full as the waters of the sea. But the key to this peace over all of creation is the one who brings it. The Messiah, the King of creation. Peace over all creation happens because the Prince of Peace himself comes to establish it. Which, as I said earlier at the beginning, makes this different from what John Lennon's message of world peace is. You see, Lennon says, war is over if you want it. World peace happens when we all make it happen together. But how many times have people tried to make peace themselves without Jesus? Only to have matters turned into chaos once again. True everlasting peace only happens when Jesus is in charge. When we give our lives over to Jesus, and when we seek Him and His peace, rather than violence or power or control, that's when peace becomes a reality around us. And just as I mentioned last week, when we were talking about the anticipation, the expectation of hope, this peace of Christ is not just some future reality that we are waiting for, but it is also a present reality for us here and now. Christ has already come to establish His kingdom. And we, who are the subjects of that kingdom, live out the ways of peace here and now, even when all is chaos and violence around us. Because Jesus Christ has come and He has brought peace with Him. We don't wait until things are all settled to live in peace. We live in peace now, waiting for it to be fully, truly everywhere when Christ will return. We don't wait for it and say, we'll get to it later. We'll play along once it's all, set up and done. No, we get to do it now, even if everything around us is in chaos and turmoil, because we have been given the Spirit of the Lord, just as it was given to Jesus. And can you imagine just how disappointed Jesus would be if He showed up to see Christians living in conflict with each other, living in turmoil with one another, and when we look at Jesus and say, well, we were waiting for you to show up first. We were going to, get our act together once you were here. Friends, the peaceable kingdom is among us. It is here. It is with us now. Maybe not fully, not entirely, and certainly not in the ways that we might want, but it is here. And it's here enough that we can be a people of peace when the rest of the world is in conflict. We can be the people who bring peace when the rest of the world is in turmoil and fighting one another. When everybody else is going to war, when everybody else is being violent against one another, the church, the body of Christ, gets to stand and say, we don't do that. We have a different ruler. We live in a different kingdom. We play by different rules. You go on fighting. We are a people of peace. And that's hard, because all around us we see that the world isn't like that. And we see all kinds of situations and events to the contrary. We even have people who say to live at peace in a time of conflict is stupid and foolish. Why in the world would you want to do that? That's weak. But we who have been given the Spirit of the Lord, we who are followers and disciples of Jesus say, It doesn't matter what the world thinks. It doesn't matter that they play by different rules. We are going to be a people of peace because that is the God and the King that we serve and live for. And there's all kinds of examples of people who are bringing this kind of peace in their lives, in their communities. Maybe it's not changing the world, maybe it's not taking over everywhere, but it is breaking in little bits and pieces. I did find one example that I learned about this week, and this is a little bit more of a silly example, but it was too wonderful and too good not to use and talk about. There is this guy on the internet. His name, he goes by, is Plumes. And what he does is, he plays music for animals to watch and see their reactions. These are a couple of snapshots and screenshots that I attempted to get and put together. He just goes with a little acoustic guitar, and he sits and plays music for animals, for giraffes, for rhinos, elephants, lions, tortoise, monkeys, all kinds of animals, to see how they interact and how they respond. And guess what? All of them are quite peaceful about it. They are also very curious and come up right next to him and say, "What are you doing?" But then they lay down, they relax, they come up close. It's this beautiful image of a glimpse of what the new creation can look like, where there is not this fear of something is going to attack me, something is going to harm me, but even the creation itself is living at peace. This is just a glimpse at the power of music, at the power of a peaceful presence happening in creation. But true peace, the absence of all strife and conflict, the presence of something that calms tensions, isn't a product of human willpower, and it isn't done by human manifestation. It is a product of the Messiah, who is himself the embodiment and the bringer of peace. True peace, everlasting peace, only happens when Jesus is in charge. And so how appropriate then that we get to come to the table today and we get to encounter this Prince of Peace here and now, to receive his grace, that we may be a people of peace in the world. We get to remember at this table how Christ brought peace with him. Not with a sword, not with an army, not even with a feel-good song. But he brought peace through sacrifice. By giving himself, breaking his body, spilling his blood, giving his very life, so that we may live in peace with God and be at peace with one another.